Morning, Mr. Griffith, and welcome.
Hi, good morning to you. Good morning, Tobago. Always my pleasure.
Always a pleasure having conversations with you as you bring insight and your own opinion on situations that happen in the public space, especially as it relates to crime, being a former commissioner of police. And of course, you know the situation in Tobago, especially over the recent past, where we've seen a surge in crime. In fact, crime has been escalating over a period of time. And for the past couple of weeks, we've had some serious criminal activity here on the island. And of course, it drove our stakeholders into action to suggest and propose some strategic plans that they can put in place to govern or at least to curb crime here on the island. One of them being, of course, as the Chief Secretary mentioned, Tobago-based policing service that will deal with specific aspects of crime. And of course, we want to get your take on this as well. How do you see this working, or do you see it working and its feasibility?
Well, again, good morning. Very innovative, thinking out of the box there by the Chief Secretary. And so let me clarify. This here, what he's speaking about, having a THA police service, it is by and large similar, if you could look at it on par with Trinidad, where you have the municipal police. So that municipal police works in the regional corporations, and so the police officers will be working directly or indirectly with councillors, with mayors in different districts and different boroughs. And with that, the municipalities, it allows that those individuals who have that responsibility in Trinidad as it pertains to their town, their borough, their city, that they can now have some link immediately with police officers to deal with the basic day-to-day concerns of policing and security in that area. And it works. It works in Trinidad to some extent, where the mayor will have certain concerns because people will be coming to him. And with that now, he will have his own, that police unit that will be dealing with patrolling the markets, the towns, the cities, or whatever. And Tobago now, so this will be almost on par to the municipal police in Trinidad. And Tobago never had that. So it allows some degree of control and responsibility that the politicians will have to assist in giving directives to a law enforcement agency that they may not be able to have to such an extent with the bona fide Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. But let us not believe that this is going to be the be-all and end-all. It is something that is very innovative. But the problem lies, going back to Trinidad, being a previous minister and being a previous commissioner of police, the problem lies in that if there's not a degree of synergy between the municipal police and the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, it is just going to be cosmetic, and it must not be so. Because when I was commissioner, it was very difficult to be able to interact with the municipal police because they basically report directly to the mayor or whoever's in charge of that region. So with that now, it is hoped that even if you have this THA police service, there must be that degree of interaction with the Trinidad and Tobago police service and not just be a separate unit. Because if you do that, it will just be nothing more than a glorified security company.
And what are some of the discussions that have to be had between the TTPS and this new THA, as you said, is the same level as the municipal policing? What are the conversations that they have to have? Because you're quite right, there must be some guiding principle in terms of how do we roll out responsibilities. And at the end of the day, policing really belongs to the TTPS. And in as much as we want to, it works in the Trinidad instance, and I'm sure it will work in the Tobago instance, because more hands on deck, of course, should make the work lighter. But at the end of the day, there must be a conversation in terms of who does what. The reporting, yes, the THA new policing service has to report to the Tobago House of Assembly, but do they report to the TTPS? Do they have conversations with the TTPS? And how does that relationship have to roll out for things to work effectively?
And that spot on. That is exactly the point. If it is that you do not have that degree of communication, you can have one hand not doing what the other is doing, and then you could have duplication of effort. So you bring in 200 members of the THA police service, and then they are now doing something almost identical to what has been directed by the ACP for Tobago by the TTPS. It means now you're getting the duplication of effort and not utilizing the resources in an effective and efficient manner. So and that is the problem we have in Trinidad, where the municipal police and the TTPS is absolutely virtually non-existent as it pertains to communication, dialogue, patrols, operations. So you will have a major event in Woodford Square. and you'll have a host of municipal police officers there stating that these are the number of officers required. And the TTPS, being aware of it, will have the same thing, because the municipal police have never been involved in that immediate interaction with the Commissioner of Police or even the ACP for that specific region. So whereas you have the head of the municipal police in Port of Spain, he's not meeting on a regular basis or a daily basis with the ACP in the Port of Spain region for the TTPS. So that is why it is very important that to avoid that mistake that is taking place in Trinidad, you have that degree of dialogue, making sure that the ACP, I'm not saying that you must report, but police is police. The TTPS is supposed to be the bona fide factor as it pertains to policing. So you form another unit trying to state, well, they will just do what we want and not be able to work in tandem with the TTPS. You're going to have duplication of effort, and you're not going to be able to utilize the resources in an effective manner.
In the event that this conversation goes well and the TTPS and the THA comes to an agreement and they understand their roles and they function in synergy, of course, it is going to go well. You mentioned your support for it. You mentioned earlier that it's a very innovative idea and it can work once the conversation is had and once persons understand their roles and functions. Now, some are saying that the THA does not have, there's no act in the THA that allows for the establishment of this particular installation of a THA policing service. However, we see the need for it, and you have mentioned that you agree with it and you think it can work once it is done properly. And you know, sometimes the policy makers and the policies kind of keep things back. What is your position where this stands? There isn't something in the act right now that allows for it. However, it is necessary at this time, and once done correctly, it will work in Tobago. So how do you feel about the fact that there isn't anything in the act to allow for it? Should we proceed with it, or how do you think this can work out for the betterment for all of us here in Tobago and Trinidad by extension as well?
Well, definitely. I always stated when I was Commissioner of Police, I stated that a safer Tobago always ensures a safer Trinidad, because if Tobago crime increases, you have to extract resources from Trinidad to take to Tobago, and now Trinidad will be affected. So in this situation, definitely, as I mentioned, if there's not dialogue, the Commissioner of Police must have buy into it to be able to understand, appreciate, and welcome and embrace such a unit in Tobago. The government must understand it. The Minister of Local Government must have a big part to play to understand that, look, what I have seen the value of police in Trinidad, and Tobago does not have something that equates with it. So let Tobago have the same thing, because remember, Trinidad does not have a House of Assembly, but Tobago does not have municipal committees. So it is almost on par. So the same way that we have seen the value of it in Trinidad through the municipal policing, you obviously can't say, well, let's not have it for Tobago, because what is it that equates with municipal policing in Tobago? There's nothing really, and that is why it means that Tobago by right should have the same type of police units similar to the municipal police in Trinidad. But by doing that, we also need to ensure that we don't have the mistakes of the municipal policing, whereas persons can be appointed, because they had a lot of issues in Trinidad because of lack of resources, lack of support, lack of recognition, and lack of funding, and they came to me on a regular basis. So we do not want the same situation where THA will bring something and then all of a sudden there will be a shortfall with the police officers in resources. My take has always been, it is not that Trinidad and Tobago needs to increase quantity as it pertains to numerical superiority in officers. We have more police officers in Trinidad and Tobago on par with the population than most places in the Americas. So it is not to increase quantity, it is to enhance quality. So even though this is important, it cannot just be hiring persons and they are semi-trained in understanding the aspects of law enforcement. They must be highly qualified and trained to ensure that they can be of value and an asset towards the security of Tobago. So this is where it is. Going back to my point, it is hoped that the government, that will be really and truly, they will be critical to ensure it is approved. I don't think that the THA may have that authority. I'm not too sure. But if it is, you have to make amendments in the Constitution to give such an avenue. Well, then the government must buy into it. The government should approve it, because you have done it for Trinidad through the municipal policing. So by and large, you should do the same for Tobago.
I totally agree with you, and we do hope that they have those conversations very soon so that that can come on board in the soonest possible time. We're speaking about Tobago getting the GEB, which is the Guard and Emergency Branch. We heard the Prime Minister mentioning that he wants to, partner and send across a unit, the Guard and Emergency Branch, to Tobago to assist with the crime situation here. What is your take on this and his approach where this is concerned?
Well, it's just only, and it's sad, I hate calling my country a banana republic, but it's only in a banana republic where politicians try to make full directions as it pertains to policies for law enforcement. You are not qualified. Keith Rowley, now we have what is known as a National Security Council. The National Security Council comprises politicians. So you have these individuals with no training, qualification, knowledge, or expertise in national security and criminology. So they just come up with these wild ideas. And that is why after 3 years, all that this National Security Council has done is to focus on forming audit committees to target political opponents and not deal with illegal firearms. This is no different. It is as dumb as you can get. The Guard and Emergency Branch is a tactical unit specifically trained as it pertains to law enforcement to deal with suppressing criminal activities in hostile or volatile situations. That is not the situation here in Tobago. So putting the Guard and Emergency Branch is very cosmetic. What is required is intelligence-driven policing, predictive policing where it is that you can analyze and utilize your resources in an effective and efficient manner. So the GB is something that is individuals that will turn up there because of crowd control, dealing with carnival, dealing with a riot, dealing with a situation or a volatile situation where you can actually face the enemy. That is what the GB is about. But it shows how clueless this man is as a prime minister. But he continues to boast that he's chair of the National Security Council. He boasts about this. He says that more than stating he's the prime minister because he wants to be a James Bond. But he's James Clueless. He doesn't have a clue. And the reason I can state that is that the problem that lies with Tobago as it pertains to crime has to do with intelligence gathering, not putting big, strong persons with shields and riot gear that the GB is involved in. So you send the GB there, and what they're going to do? Walk around Storby with tasers and pepper spray and tear gas and big shields looking for criminals. That is not the situation in Tobago. Tobago, the crime that is taking place is very clandestine. Individuals who will hit and run. They will be able to commit a crime, whether it be rape, murder, robbery, and then ride out. The GB is not going to be of any value. That is their qualification and their training, which is important, by the way, because they've proven to be very effective in dealing with major events, carnival, crowd control. That is not what Tobago needs. It shows the man is as dumb as you can get. What is required is what we had in 2021 when we sent the Special Operation Response Team to Tobago, if you recall that. And it was put on headlines on several occasions. SWOT started sending the criminals back to Trinidad because what SWOT wasn't just strong persons with riot gears and shields and tear gas. What it was, we had an intelligence unit in SWOT that was able to send undercover officers, persons into the underworld, looking at the dark web, using technology, and then pinpointing who are the perpetrators, who are the individuals who migrated from Trinidad into Tobago, and then sting operations and started pegging them back. That is how it is done. What is done as well is trying to be able to find a shield, a dome around Tobago by putting proper elements and systems to prevent illegal firearms leaving Trinidad to get to Tobago. So as I always mentioned, it is so laughable and I could not have done it as the Commissioner of Police, but it's something that I had set to do as a Minister of National Security. Persons will have to walk onto a boat to get to Tobago, and you have to go through a walk-through scanner because you don't want to have the person with a weapon. But every single car that enters to go on it is not checked, because we're supposed to have K9s. We're supposed to have the mobile scanners that I provided as the Commissioner of Police to help the incompetent government. So that mobile scanner will be next to every car that enters Tobago, and that mobile scanner will be able to pinpoint if there are weapons on that vehicle, if there are drugs in that vehicle. We formed a National Operations Center in Tobago to monitor using the cameras to look at 24/7 to ensure that we can see if there are criminal elements, put in facial recognition at the airport. So we have the photos of all the major gang members in Trinidad. If they come to Tobago, we can immediately pinpoint them, see where they're living, see where they're going, so we can be able to monitor the migration and suppress them. Those are the things that require getting drones, getting the covert operatives, as I mentioned. Those are the things that, and also putting a special DNA lab in Tobago to be able to pinpoint that if there's a crime, immediately we won't have to wait 7 years as what takes place in Trinidad, whereas it takes 7 days in other parts of the world. It'll take 7 years for the DNA results to come out so we can pinpoint the perpetrator. Those are the things that were required. Finally, looking at a 999 system. I don't know if you're aware, you call 999 in Tobago, it has to go to Trinidad for them to pick it up, and then they will call a station in Tobago. By that time, the criminal has already gone back to Trinidad. You need a proper system with a number that any Tobago citizen presses that number with a 3-digit number. It goes to an operational center in Tobago where you will now have an emergency response patrol to respond within less than 5 minutes to that distress call. That is how it worked in Trinidad and Tobago, that ensured in that period, 2020, 2021, it was the highest reduction in violent crime in 17 years. And those are the things that are required. So we had the Special Operational Response Team. It suppressed crime in Tobago. Tobago, I think this was the safest it has ever been in over 15 years in that period. You remove SORT because of your lies, and then after trying to bring in the GEB, which is an operational, overt, tactical unit, and that is not what Tobago needs. Tobago is not in a war zone, in an open war zone with criminals. The criminals are hitting and running, so that is the type of systems that we need, not the GEB.
So, of course, expressing your disagreement there with that proposal to have the GEB here in Tobago. I know some of our viewers had mentioned that we don't want to militarize Tobago at this stage, of course, but the primary concern for residents here in Tobago is ensuring safety, because at the end of the day, we want to feel safe to walk across by the parlor, by your neighbor, even to get to your car outside your house. Sometimes is something that we have to consider as being able to do in safety and comfort. And so now you're talking about different strategies and different mechanisms that can be put in place. One of the areas that is very porous in Tobago is our borders. And I think you mentioned having scanners and stuff like that on the port itself. But there are borders where things enter without detection. And so what is your strategy? What is your ideas in terms of strengthening those areas?
Well, it's not really ideas. As the Minister of National Security, I had that set up as well. When it is that the PNM were trying to purchase 3 OPVs at the cost of $2.4 billion, when I did the homework and I did the research, because the PNM loves a road march, everything is the OPV. And because of them being totally clueless, ignorant, if not corrupt, in trying to justify that OPV, we were paying $2.4 billion for 3 OPVs. When I looked at the cost-benefit analysis as it pertained to the maintenance, it would have been hundreds of millions of dollars per annum because of the size and the things that we had to do to refit different parts of Stobles Bay and so forth. And then it was the same cost in Colombia, Korea, and Israel was $1.2 billion for the same thing. So there's $1.2 billion in overhead. And additionally, so what I did is I acquired Diamond vessels, and these Diamond patrol vessels, one was to be assigned specifically to Tobago. In fact, the name of that vessel was in line with something in Tobago. And that Diamond vessel would have been there to do exactly that. They have refused to do that, and I acquired those vessels since 2014. So 10 years later, a vessel of that magnitude, equivalent to do the same thing that the OPV could have done at 1.2 billion less, is still in Trinidad and Stobles Bay that should have been in Tobago. And 10 years, the government has done nothing to put the facilities to ensure that that type of vessel can remain in Tobago. Like, additionally, remember I formed the police marine unit, and the budget I put was to make sure we had a powerful team with vessels in and around Tobago, not just to deal with patrolling our borders, but to assist Tobagonians in case of any natural or man-made disaster, having a police marine branch that was shut down decades ago that I brought back after about 30 odd years. And that marine branch would have been very powerful to assist in exactly what you're speaking about. Additionally, the concept of the drones, because when I brought in the Special Operational Response Team, I was acquiring drones, and the drones would have been able to turn night into day to lock onto a matchstick that enters Tobago's waters, and then we will be able to feed that into the National Operations Center and have an immediate response, not just by the police marine branch, not just by the Diamond vessel, but also police officers on the ground just waiting to intercept. That is how you deal with securing the borders of Tobago from the illegal ports of entry. The legal ports of entry I mentioned is not difficult. You have the mobile scanners that they have shut down and deliberately not used. Every single vehicle that enters the port to get to Tobago, it must be scanned to see if there are weapons or drugs. We have the technology worldwide to do that. And then, as I said, finally, not using the GB. So if somebody is robbing someone in a parlor, you're not going to send 20 GB men with riot shields and helmets to deal with it. This type of security requires operations, intelligence-driven operations, which is what the Special Operation Response Team would have done. Tobago, you will remember when we send those 50-odd officers there, all of a sudden the criminals started going back home because we started pegging them back and told them Tobago is out of bounds. That is how you deal with it. That is how I intend to fix Tobago, to clean up Tobago as soon as the government changes. And I will be working closely with the THA, similar to what I did as Commissioner of Police. On a regular basis, every 3 months, I will be meeting with the stakeholders as Commissioner of Police. Is that being done for the last 2 years? No. As the Minister of Security, every 3 months, I'll meet with Orville and communicating with him and the business sector, hearing their concerns. Is that being done by the present Minister of National Security? The answer is no. So people want positions in government. They want positions as Commissioner of Police, but they don't want to roll up their sleeves, do the job, and support Tobago. I intend to do so the day after the next general election.
Mr. Griffith, it's always so engaging having conversations with you. And you mentioned talking with stakeholders as it relates to curbing crime. At this stage, the situation that we have in Tobago right now, as we're trying to put strategies in place, do you think that there should be conversation with other stakeholders, probably like the TT, the regiment, or whomever else, to assist to form some sort of, barrier to crime here on the island of Tobago?
Yeah, definitely. I started my military career being a lieutenant in Tobago, where you'll spend a 3-month tour of duty. It was the best part of my career in the Defense Force. But they can't just be staying up in a camp waiting for a war to take place. There's a lot more the Defense Force can do. Their role and function is not just to wait for a war to take place, but also to assist in an aid to civil power. So they can be involved in joint patrols with the police. That involves the Minister of National Security having the foresight and the political will to utilize the Defense Force. We have 5,000 members of the Defense Force. We have 800 in Air Guard in Piarco, and there's no aircraft, so they're doing nothing. We have over 1,000 members of the Coast Guard, and then we have the damaged vessels not being utilized. And then we have 3,000 odd members in the Army who have been in camp waiting for a war to take place since 1990. There's a lot that they can do, similar to what is in Tobago. We're supposed to have at least 100 out of that 5,000 in Tobago, not just a platoon, and utilize them in an effective manner to suppress the criminal elements. But as I said, we don't want to turn Tobago into a militarized zone. There's no need for that as yet. We need that definitely in Trinidad because it is a virtual war zone in hotspot areas. Tobago does not have that. What Tobago requires is predictive policing, pinpointing where the criminal is, what they intend to do. And we had that through using the dark web, through the 482 Gary, through online reporting, and allowing citizens to feel safe and comfortable. We have that problem now because at that time, what I'm speaking about, public trust and confidence in the police was 59%. So people felt safe to tell the police, this is the situation, this is the new guy who has now landed in Tobago, he's living here, he's selling drugs. Now public trust and confidence in the police is 8%. No fault of the police, by the way. Don't get me wrong. It has to do with leadership and putting systems and policies to get the public to trust the police. By doing that, that is where I speak about as the Commissioner of Police and the Minister of National Security. Every 3 months, you must be going to Tobago, meet with the stakeholders, meet with the business sector, meet with the police officers, meet with the religious organizations. If you don't do that, what you're going to do is make a stupid, ridiculous, knee-jerk system to say, let's send the GB to Tobago.
Thank you, Mr. Gary Griffith. We